Hello, hello. Welcome back to The Whole Picture, where we chat with your favorite entrepreneurs about their hobbies, passion projects, and deep interests, the things that keep them going and in it for the long game. Today, we are here with Marley Jaxx, who is a YouTube and content expert for seven-figure entrepreneurs. Welcome, Marley.
Hello, hello. What a great topic. And it's also at the same time making me a little like apprehensive or nervous of I need to do more of my hobbies. I don't want to get too stuck in the business.
Yeah, it's such a common thing. We all have this as entrepreneurs, like we don't make money unless we're working. So we always are like always working.
Yeah.
And so many people I talk to, I'm like, yeah, what do you do outside of work? And they're like, outside of work.
Yeah. I made my
Well,
hobby into a business. So yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm so excited to talk to you because we share a similar hobby and passion project in the acting world and the screenwriting world. And I know that you made a documentary recently, which I want to get into. But first, just tell me about like how this started for you in your interest in acting or your interest in this entertainment world.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that was always my dream. Like you grow up watching Disney movies and it's like, oh, I want to make movies. I want to make stories. I want to be a princess. And like, and then it evolves into live action. You see these actors who are, I mean, incredible artists. And I just always thought I wanted to do that. And in high school, I did, some acting and theater and stuff, but was kind of always told that that doesn't actually, it's not real, it's not sustainable, not many people actually make it, or it's not a healthy industry. So, don't dream a different dream. And I just believed that for some time that like, okay, yeah, it doesn't, it's not achievable. But it was always just still a fascination in my mind and like this desire to create. And it's also, I was thinking about this recently about how, like, when we were growing up, and if you're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lot of the things that are popular careers now didn't exist back then. Like, I couldn't say, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a content creator. Like, me back then wanting to be a movie star or be an actor I can still kind of like scratch that itch and explore that creativity with online entrepreneurship and content. So it's really cool to think that, like, even though for a time I gave up on the dream of making movies, I kind of still, make movies on YouTube. Like, I make content for myself and entrepreneurs. So yeah, I was always fascinated with movies. And but then the idea of go to Hollywood, be the starving artist was like, I don't know if I want to take that path.
Yeah. Yeah. That I had a similar experience. And I didn't even realize at the time that I was acting really. Like I grew up in theater. My mom was a set designer, but
Oh,
so it was in my world, but like I would watch shows and then like go back to my room and be like reenacting the scenes. But I didn't even realize that that was like me wanting to be an actor. It was just like what I was, I was mimicking these things. And then similar to you, I had that where I was like, well, I can't really just go to LA or I can't really do the thing. But
right.
I found myself in like circular, like in the circle of it. Like I went to school originally for broadcast journalism. So it was like I was learning camera work, I was learning certain things. And so I'm curious, did you find as you were like kind of going through your career path, did you find yourself kind of like in the world of acting?
Totally. Yeah, like I wanted to go to school for broadcast journalism, but I ended up actually just working at the local radio station, and then I moved to a bigger city and just transferred to that local, which is a big market in Toronto in Canada. I was working at their radio station and started doing some stuff in television and event management, and I was producing concerts and things like that. So I was, like you said, circling this kind of industry, and then that's also around the time when social media started to become a thing. So I'm like creating content on social media for the radio station or the event production, and it was just like something that I was kind of good at because of my just natural fascination with it. And just, yeah, so cool to think that it didn't exist when I was, a kid being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? But then I still naturally found my way into it, which I'm so glad because actually I should mention this before. I went into radio and television and event management and started doing things on social media, I was a dental hygienist, which was so, I mean, it was the safe choice. It was this is the thing that you should be that's respectable and you get a good paycheck and you can, get 2 weeks of vacation and pay a mortgage. But like, think about the dream that we have and this creative side that we have. It was definitely not being fulfilled by cleaning teeth every day.
No, yeah, certainly not. I did a similar thing where I went, into like I was like a sales ops manager, just doing like paperwork and that type of thing. And there is this like creativity is seen as like kind of a luxury in a way of like of the typical corporate world is like you have to do the thing and then if you have time, you can go over here and do this. But like it's
Yeah.
not a valid choice to make like as your career. So, did you have a moment where, because obviously, you transitioned out of dental your that work and you became an entrepreneur and started doing your stuff there. So, like, did you have a moment of, okay, I'm gonna make this change, or did it happen like out of necessity? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, it happened by accident and with resistance. That these opportunities came up. Like I was working at my dental office as a hygienist, cleaning teeth all day, but bored to tears, I start doing their social media on the side, and I'm like good at it. I'm creating content. We're growing a following. There's people that come into the office that are saying, I don't like coming to the dentist, but I thought that because your content was humorous and funny, and I got to know the hygienists, and I made silly stories about like our office goldfish that we named Jaws, and like just created like this character arc on our social media, that people would say like, I decided to come to you because you seemed personable. And then from there, the dentists and like their IT people were like, hey, can I refer you to some of my other business owner friends, and would you be open to helping them? And I'm like, sure. Like I don't even really understand like that you can make money doing this. But I just kept getting referrals and referrals and referrals. And at some point, I was like, I'm making more money from my little side hobby business than cleaning teeth. Could I go all in on this? Oh, I don't know. Like at that point, it was the biggest thing was the mindset of believing my whole life that I love how you worded it, that creativity is a luxury. And I chose dental because I was told that I could do my work during my 8-hour business day and then do my hobbies on the side, that like that was the parameters that were acceptable by society and just what you grow up in. And so I it was like this safety, I say in quotations, of having someone else sign your paychecks, and if you go into business, like it's so risky, um and it's like hard to return if you fail, and then you have to admit that you failed. So it was like hard for me at first to accept like, okay, this is actually working. Um, and if I go all in, can I sustain it? But also there's this like acceptance things, because I think, and I'm curious if you ever had this, like the well-meaning people around you that are like, so what do you do? And like, how long are you going to keep playing with this? Or when are you going to settle into like a real job? But then what I think is so fascinating is like what happened in 2020, the country locks down, and people who, I mean, the dental office that I used to work at, like they had to stop working for a long time. They had to, when they did end up going back to work, so many regulations and different kind of personal protective equipment and stuff, like just insane, that I wouldn't want to deal with that. And I'm like, huh, thank goodness I have a business where I have so many opportunities, and I don't have a limit on how much I make. And the person that used to sign my paycheck, I didn't see that coming, that one day this global pandemic would happen, and then it would turn out that my creativity is what kept me going.
Yeah, I love that. It's that reframe I had to make as well in that like safety I always saw outside of myself. Safety was someone else being in
Mm.
control of my career, which as I say it now, from my mindset now, that sounds crazy, but
Yeah, isn't
my
it's like
whole
unrecognizable. I can't believe I used to think that.
it's wild. But just growing up, that was the case, and that was like always what I was told was like, you get a good job, you do the good thing, you do. But now I'm like, I can't imagine not owning my career because that is the safe thing,
Yeah.
is that I've built a skill set that is marketable and I have tools that I can use to make money no matter where, what company, all these different things. So yes, it has been, it's such a shift in thinking. Um, and so you made that shift in thinking, and you have had a very successful career in terms of content marketing and YouTube and all that. And I want to get into that too at the end because that's, people so need your services. Like you have such a cool way of looking at it and gamifying it and all that. But at some point you stopped circling acting and you like got into acting, right? So
Mhm.
tell me about that transition.
Yeah, and it was I feel like my YouTube channel was almost like the gateway. Like I started making business content, social media, education, but also being able to put my creativity into that. Like I would, do little skits in my content and be able to teach through some entertainment, like combining education, entertainment, edutainment, I've heard it called. Um, and then, but I was still always like, I wonder if I could ever make that dream come true. Like the Oscars are this weekend, and I'm like, oh, this is like my Super Bowl. I love this world. And um my fiance was the one that was like, why not? Like what is this lingering belief that makes you feel like you couldn't? Like you've already done the things that so many people wouldn't even attempt to do, like leave a 9 to 5 or build $1 million business or have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Like you've done these things. Why couldn't you just believe that you could make a movie? And it was again like a rewriting of beliefs that I think, we talked about this earlier. I can't just get up and move to LA. Well, wait, who says that that's the way that you do it? And I had to realize, like, wait a minute, I've created all these opportunities for myself up to this point. Why couldn't I just create the next one? And that's how I first made a documentary, which you mentioned, that I was like, why do I believe that the path is like you go to an audition with your hat in your hands and like, please choose me? Why don't I just create my own work? And so the first thing that I made was a documentary about cancel culture, and it did amazing. Like it was my first film I've ever made, and we put it in film festivals. It won some awards in the Manhattan Film Festival and the LA Documentary Film Festival, and got a lot of buzz online. And then it was like, huh, okay, I can do this. Okay, now what? And so now, and then I started to I took this one week where I booked a flight to LA and like had no plan. I just was like, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna meet people, I'm gonna explore and just like see what I can do there. And I did hire like an acting coach, and I did some classes with her and have like an acting business coach that I love working with because she's also taught the business side of the industry, which that week that I went to LA, it was so funny. Like by Tuesday, like day two, I'm like sitting in my car having a meltdown because I'm like, what am I doing here? This is so, it's like out of my comfort zone, but at the same time, I've done so many other things that are out of my comfort zone. So it was like this weird, again, rewiring. Um, and what I learned from that experience though was I was going in there again with the old mindset belief of like I have to find an opportunity. I have to find someone that's going to pick me. And then a few days into the trip, I'm like meeting with other actors and met with casting directors, and I had an incredible opportunity to meet with like an executive at Paramount that mentored me for a little bit, and she really instilled in me again, like it seems so obvious now to look at, but it took such a big switch for me to realize I can create my own work. And when I was meeting with these actors, who their path is definitely like, do the audition route and network and find the right opportunities, um, I was like, I get to create my opportunities. And it was this mentor that was like, you're not an actor, you're an actor producer. Like you can produce your own work.
Yes, you are speaking my language because this is something I've spent the last couple years doing. And also, my husband and I talk about this all the time. He's a full-time actor producer, director, and he went kind of the traditional route for a long time. Like that's what actors do. You know, you audition for things and you, like you said, hat in hand, like you're like, pick me, pick me. And then he, you know, started producing more of his own stuff, and we created like a creative studio that we produce our own stuff through. And it has been me coming from the entrepreneur journey and him coming from the acting world. It's like I've noticed that there's kind of like two tracks in the acting world. It's like the entrepreneur track, which is the producer, you know, track, and then there's kind of almost an employee mindset in the actor world, which is like
Yes.
my safety, give me a job, like give me a role, like you're waiting for someone else to sign your check. So I'm curious if you noticed, like when you started being more and more in the acting world, like did you see your entrepreneurial side like coming out in that world and serving you in that world?
Totally. And I love that you bring this up. It's like such a good reminder for me to relive this. When we went to the film festivals with the documentary, I'm like surrounded by these other actors and amazing people, and they're like, "Hey, how did you get the funding for your film?" And I was like, "I just did it myself." And they're like, who produced it?" And I was like, "I did it myself." And they're like, who edited it?" "Okay, well, my editor here, but like we like did it together." And it was like, I love that you described it as the entrepreneur versus employee mindset. That I'm like surrounded by these people that in a way I'm like, how are you doing this? But then vice versa, they were like, how did you do this? And I was like, I guess I did it the only way I know how. And the way that you're doing things is different, not wrong, but like there's things that we both, learned from each other in that. And I think it's like so much of it was just this like mindset junk that I believed again growing up with like, oh, that doesn't happen to normal people. Well, so far I've learned that I don't want to be a normal person either, and I do things differently, and I don't need anyone to understand that as long as I'm just enjoying the process of it too.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. There's some level of like inevitability to me about acting and just about like what we do as humans because I fell into acting kind of in this point where I needed it. I was like doing this training and I had a panic attack and I was like I need to learn to be in front of people again. Like so I did it in improv class. Like that was like my way of like getting back on the horse. And it took me on this journey that eventually led me to my husband because I met him in an acting class, has eventually like helped me like kind of fulfill like this part of myself that is like was unexpressed. Like I'm very like in my head. I'm a copywriter, so like all the stories happen in my head,
Yeah.
you know. And I just did Josh Forty's podcast, and he was like asking why I like acting. I was like, I think it's like the external version of copywriting. Like I'm like someone else externally.
That's great.
So it feels like inevitable to me. And I'm curious, like how now that you're like in it, like has it felt like, okay, this is like the full circle moment. Like I needed this.
Yeah, and when you say inevitable, do you mean like that it's just going to happen regardless? Like it's just something about this is as long as I keep at it, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of if I will keep at it until it does.
Yes, I love that perspective. And I also feel like inevitable in the sense that, like, if I was trying to become the best person I can be, this was part of this is what needed to happen somewhere in the
Yeah.
journey.
And also, in a way, there was a time where I also believed like I'm too late. Oh my gosh, I'm 34 years old. Margot Robbie started when she was, 18. I don't know, but
Mhm.
like I'm too late.
Yep.
And I felt this like kind of resentment of the beliefs that I used to believe and how it held me back and the well-meaning people that said things that I believed. Ultimately, it's my responsibility for because I also was told my whole life that I can do anything I set my mind to, and that I'm so resourceful, and that I I can achieve anything. So it's like I had conflicting beliefs there. I'm like, oh, but except for that. But it was my own fear. And now I also look back at, maybe any opportunities that I could have had to take a different path. And I think it all worked out the way that it should because I definitely didn't have the right confidence, security, self-actualization, uh, inner approval, like self-worth that I mean, unfortunately, we hear unhealthy things about Hollywood, which you can say about any industry really, but I think it's also going to be a reflection of who you are. And I look back to in my earlier 20s where I was definitely seeking external validation. I was in a lot of relationships, boyfriends, bosses, friends that were not healthy because of what I was trying to fulfill in my life. And I'm like, man, if I like did the Hollywood thing and went to LA with my hat in my hands, please choose me, that could have devastated me. And now, because of what I've learned from entrepreneurship, I am going to be a much different person coming into this industry in whatever way I choose. And again, like I coming into it with a producer entrepreneurial mindset that I can create that. Like I watched I was watching, I love, and you probably are the same, like watching the Hollywood documentaries. And I love reading books. A book that I like always have near me is Michael Ovitz's biography. He was a super agent in Hollywood, and I love the business side of things. And I read these books now from like a different perspective of I love the business, the creation, the personal development that comes from this creativity instead of in my 20s, it probably would have just been like a pick me, choose me. I want to be famous to fulfill a void.
Yes, 100%. I felt the same way. I didn't start acting until I was like 30, maybe 30, 31.
Mm.
And I mean, again, I started when I was 6, but it was, just little stuff. Um, so yes, there was, if I would have found it earlier, it would not have been in a good way. I'm certain of
Right.
that. And so I do feel like there's a reason why, things happen the way that they happen. Um, I'm curious, so you are like me, where you have the business side to you and then the creative side to you. And I'm curious how you look at them together. Like when I'm thinking about a project that I want to write or produce or do something, I look at it first through a business lens of like what's going to make money, what is going to like be mass marketable. And
Yeah.
then I come at it from an artist perspective. And my husband is the opposite because he's comes more from the arts world and he's like we talk about this a lot. Like where does business fit into this? And I'm curious what your perspective is as you're looking at projects.
That's such a cool question. I think I'm totally like you. I'm like, how do we monetize this? Because monetizing it is also going to help it reach more people
Mhm.
because we will have the resources to be able to promote this more. And also, if people are paying for it, it's impacting their life, they're going to spread it. Like, I totally think from that perspective. Um, and then the creative side, I think I'm thinking from like a team perspective too, of like who are the people that I can have involved in this to be able to keep creating something even bigger than my vision allows, that someone else's vision could come and make this even bigger. How do I get brands involved that like we, scratch both itches that like they need to promote something, we need funding, we want to be able to have the borrow each other's credibility to promote something that's bigger than all of us. So it's really cool to think about that and like my fiance is the face of this brand, the Capitalist Pig, and uh, I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about capitalism that some people think like, oh, just greedy capitalists, they're just trying to make money, but it's like capitalism is innovation. It's solving problems for people. It's being able to make money and be able to give back and reinvest that into making more. And I think where I used to think that or believe that creativity is a luxury, like you said. Creativity is actually the thing that's going to allow us to keep innovating and keep telling stories that change people's lives. And in arts, like there are artists, actors, performers that are like disproportionately financially incentivized. And it's like, but there's just that, I think it's the belief of going from the starving artist of like, will I ever make it to it's that I'm trying to think, like, come up with the words for it. It's like there's suddenly that tipping point where like they just made it. And thinking about someone like Margot Robbie or Emma Stone, who's been acting since they were 18, there's probably so many times that they considered giving up on it, but you could say that about anything. I could say that about dental hygiene. Like, I didn't want to be a dental hygienist, but there would totally be a point where maybe I'd be like, I gave up on it. But there's this weird societal belief that I used to have that was like, oh, but that's more respected or validated. And I think that with how the world is changing. Like, look at what AI is doing, that like we can automate things that a robot can do. And I think it's going to be the creatives that I hope that there's a pendulum swing, that like the creatives become the really wealthy and life-changing people.
I so agree. And I think in part, like I was part of the ClickFunnels team when they were doing the documentary for Operation Underground Railroad.
Wow, yeah.
And I was like, that was one of the first times that I realized like in some way like that this artistic side of me was not just like frivolous. It was not just this like thing where I could like go play. Like if I could make serious money as an entrepreneur, if I could do this thing, I could produce stories that like matter. Like people need to hear this story. And I have this like dream of like having enough money that like I'm just talking to someone and they mention this cause that they're part of and being like, let's fund that story. Because that is like, we saw in 2020, we saw in all these recent history how much people are turning to entertainment
Hmm.
in difficult times. Like
Yeah.
TikTok would have still been big no matter when it came on the scene, but it came on the scene right when everyone was home and scared.
Yeah.
And we saw that that's where everyone goes is to be entertained and kind of just go there. So if we can put stories that matter and causes that matter in front of people in an entertaining way, like think about the ramifications of that. So I love what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned AI, and I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of AI interacting with scripts and art. Have you explored that at all? And like, what are your thoughts on that?
I love AI. I think it's similar to like anything, garbage in, garbage out. You got to be able to know how to use it. I think at first when I didn't know how to use it, I was like, "Oh, this is just a fad. It's going to be like Clubhouse or, like any of those apps that kind of came and went." But then as I started to use it more, I was like, "Oh, no, this is like life-changing." But I think that if people are going to use it, they still need to use it as a tool and not the final say in their decision making or their creative process. Like, I think by now we know what it's like when you read someone's social media post or something that you're like, oh, like this is just, it reeks of insincerity. We know that they just like asked AI to spit out a script for them and they didn't even edit it. Like there's way too many emojis. The M dash is everywhere. It's not this, it's this. Like we know what it's like. And I think that it's like filtered how we perceive creativity, that like if it there's like an energy that I don't know if you can explain, that I'll try to explain it. Like, when you hear a beautiful piece of music and it just like moves you, and like you can't describe it. It's just like something that came from the creator when they were making it is absorbed into this piece of music that now is transitioning into through my ears in my brain, that I feel it in my body now. And if people use AI without injecting that magic, I don't know how else to describe it. They're not going to have that same transformation when it transitions from whatever medium to my brain and my body. So I don't want people to lose that yes, you can use AI. It's an amazing tool. Like have it help you figure out the next step in your hook or your script or whatever, but we can't lose the magic that is what people pay extra for, like that obsession that comes with the art.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is such a cool tool. I use it often as like a junior copywriter. Like I'll say like here's a
Oh,
brain
yeah.
dump of stuff and it'll help me structure. There is something there's something about humanity that like human recognizes human in like when we know, okay, this has been like this is a journey that someone has been on, and you watch something and you're like, that's not just a documentary about this or a film about this. That director experienced that. Like you
Yeah.
can tell. I think human experience is probably what is going to be the biggest learning curve for AI, but it gives us such a tool to crank out things much faster, I think. So it's yeah, it's got this cool hybrid.
Yeah.
Um, so now you are in the world. You went to LA, you did your documentary, and like what was next for you? Were you like, okay, I scratched the itch, or were you like, I'm just getting started, like now I want to do more?
I'm totally just getting started, and there's always things that I could be doing more of. Like I think it's so amazing to be able to like create your own content, create your own work, find the right people, or even like find projects that are existing. And I've thought a lot about, and I have this amazing like kind of actors mastermind, that they have a ton more experience than I do. Like they go to acting classes all the time, they're auditioning all the time, and I've wondered how if I put even like an ounce more effort like they do, I might be able to get more opportunities. But part of it's like, well, I'm running this business that I'm also really fulfilled by. I still really want to explore this. So this is also a great reminder for me of like I believe that I can create anything that I want to experience. So it's just like where am I pointing my attention? And I think that again with us having like an entrepreneurial mindset, a creator mindset, being able to go to IMDb and see projects that are already in the works and to be able to not just like audition for it saying pick me, but to say like, hey, I have a marketing background. I have a social media audience. I have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I would love to be a part of this project. And here's what else I bring to the table instead of just I fit the description of the character and I hope, please hope that, that I play it right. I say the lines right in my 30-second audition that they watch a tape, among many others. Um, I think that we have opportunities with this entrepreneur mindset that might open more doors. And it's just like, I have to be the first one to open the door and do those things. So whether I decide like, hey, I'm going to take half an hour every day to like find some of these people with projects already and ask how I can contribute. And same thing with anything. Like if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to get a relationship, like you got to show up again with here's what I bring to the table. Here's how I can contribute to this relationship instead of just a pick me. Cause that's not a great, that's almost like a victim mind, like a creative victim mindset instead of a producer mindset.
Yeah, it totally is. It's something that I think in some way I want more artists and people to understand like the business world isn't limiting, it's empowering. And I think like my mom, she did sets growing up for her community theater, and she was an artist, and she would always see the business world as like that's like this kind of scary thing. It's like it's this thing that I don't really want to be involved in because like I'm the artist, like I'm gonna be over here. And I totally understand that. And I also hope that more artists and actors are able to see it as something that gives you the chance to do your art more and more loudly and get in front of these people. So yes, I love that. Um, I'm curious as you're exploring the acting world, how you've seen it impact your business. Do you feel like more creatively fulfilled coming into your business? Do you have like because we know like the funnel hacking method is, going to different industries and then kind of applying it. So do you see that like it helped you this way? Do you see it helping you in this direction too?
Yeah, that's a cool question. I think it helped me to think about how I make my content on social media that I still get to like play characters. And obviously, the most important character is that I am still genuinely me because I'm not trying to have a new story arc and character arc or like trick people into believing I'm someone I'm not. But it's cool to think about like the same things that I love about movies. I can install that into my content, like the same way that there's cliffhangers and open loops and character development. Like, I can do that in my content and bring a whole different perspective that other people that don't have that exposure might think of. Or even with the documentary, like we did this documentary, but it was actually like we call it a docu stunt. It was like a publicity stunt documentary. And the way that we promoted it wasn't just this like, hey, we made a movie, come see it. Like it launched with a publicity stunt. So it was cool to be able to think of like, how do I How do I leverage an existing audience? How do I make noise the same way that I would with a marketing campaign? And then just ultimately like my mindset is I want to do things that feel fun, that don't feel like a chore. There's enough things about business that's hard, and creating content is one of those things that it can feel like a grind sometimes. So my mindset is, and like a model that I have with my clients is the more I play, the more I get paid. So how do we just make it so that this content is fun instead of like, oh, I have to get in front of the camera and turn into a news anchor and blah, 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 be really professional. I'm like, how do I just make this the most fun thing that I can do today? Because again, we talk about like that passion and that obsession that transfers from the creator to the observer. You can't fake that.
Yeah. I'm I'm curious if that like motto and that kind of way of looking at things to make it more fun, or was it like your marketer brain that launched your documentary the way you launched it? Because I know somewhat of the backstory of how it launched, but I'm curious where that came into play, like how you decided on that method.
And I'll give some context for people. What we did is it's a documentary about cancel culture, and it was an experiment to see if I could get myself canceled in 7 days. And I almost like I don't want to spoil it, but like if you watch it, you can go to my YouTube channel and watch it there. There's a huge plot twist at the end, and the thing is, like, this played out live. So whether you watch it now, you'll still get the shock and awe of the plot twist, but also know that people were experiencing this on social media, that, some pictures were posted. There were some big name influencers that were involved, but what they didn't know was like how much of it was fabricated. And people won't be able to tell until the end of the documentary when you see it. So it was really cool to think about like, I always thought about content like, how do I make this experiential? How do I make this that I'm not just, I mean, the same way that we watch a movie and you're on the edge of your seat or you're crying along with the protagonist when their heart breaks, like, how do I make my content feel like that in business? And I think that's just like what I'm in relentless pursuit of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. So, what is next for you in your acting world? Do you have a dream role that you want, or like certain genres that you like playing in, or like what is exciting to you in the acting world now?
I love and I very publicly talk about like I love Leonardo DiCaprio. I think his acting is fantastic. I would love to be a female Leonardo DiCaprio. I know I got a long ways to go. I would love to make a movie with him too. Like that's like my ultimate dream of all dreams. Like make a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. I love drama. I love the kinds of storylines. I love true story like biopics. I don't know how you say it, but about true stories of people. And I would love to be able to produce movies about people that I've enjoyed their stories. Like there's a woman in Hollywood that was like the first female executive in Hollywood. Her name's Sherry Lansing, and I'm like, why has no one made a movie about her? Like maybe one day I will. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. I think the way that you think about um, the acting world and the way that you think about what you want to produce is so cool because that is like that's how we know that quality content is being made. You
Mm,
know, there's so much out there because we consume at such a high rate that we have to produce at such a high rate or studios produce at such a high rate. I watch stuff and I'm like, was this even written by human? It's so,
wow.
watered down and stripped down, but they're fulfilling the need. But I think that you're fulfilling this need of quality content and quality like work that is so cool. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, in wrapping up, what is well, first of all, where can people go find your documentary? Because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, youtube.com/Marley Jaxx. And it's called I Got Canceled and I Did It to Myself.
Love it. And then where can people learn more about you as your business is your entrepreneurial side, which is the YouTube and content creation business that you have. There's some cool like gamification that you do with people. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, if people go to playthecontentgame.com, I have this strategy where I'm like, in 15 to 30 minutes a day, I can help you turn content from a chore into a game that makes money. Like it's a daily revenue routine that if you can't spend like 15 to 30 minutes a day with this, I almost make it like a 75 hard for content, but fun. Again, it always has to be fun. Um, that again, the more you play, the more you get paid. So the strategy, there's a video that shows you what the routine is and how to implement it for your business.
Awesome. So I do like a couple rapid fire questions at the end, and I'm curious, you've mentioned fun several times in this
Mhm.
as like a pillar. So where did that come from for you? Like where did you first be like, it has to be fun for me?
Yeah, it came from needing to rewire that I had a very deeply ingrained belief that success has to come from struggle and that it has to be hard for it to be worth it. And just after, I don't know, 30 some years of believing that was like, why do I believe that? And what's the antidote for it? And it even like asking that question brings up struggle and conflict because it's like, but it's all I've ever known and it's worked so far. So like if I'm not in struggle or if there's not chaos, am I gonna unknowingly create it? Or do I like where does my self-worth come from if it didn't feel like it was hard to get to there? So I like created this and the best way that I know how to install something into my life is to like teach it and bring along a community that like we keep living it together, which then still opened up other struggles of like, wait a minute, my life is like playful and peaceful. And now I have to like continue to believe that I deserve that and that even though previously I've grown from struggle, I can still grow from peace.
Mm, I love that. That is such a rewiring that I had to do as well. And I see so many people because we were raised by a
Totally.
generation where, there was a struggle, as we like get further into humanity, our struggles become more different, that we're not dealing with the Great Depression, we're dealing with like, technology and all these other things. So we were raised in that mentality, and now it's like we can just operate
Yeah.
from peace, from a different way. Um, okay, if you had to have one meal for the rest of your life, what meal would you pick?
Oh my gosh. Like shrimp tacos.
Ooh,
Yeah,
specific. I love it.
fun
And
question.
what is one a book or movie that you recently saw that impacted the way that you see things?
Oh man, I'm like trying to like look around me for books that I have. I know I mentioned the Michael Ovitz biography. I love his story. Um, so he was a good one. I also loved, we finished Breaking Bad, and I know I'm like several years late, but wow, just like fantastic writing, and Bryan Cranston is an incredible actor.
He's amazing. He's one of those actors who I aspire I look at and I'm like, I mean, he just has consistently for, I mean, whatever, 20 years, he's just been consistently amazing. Yes, great one. All right. Well, Marley Jaxx, thank you so much. Everyone go check out her documentary, youtube.com/Marley Jaxx, and we'll put all the info in our show notes as well. This was such a cool conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.